Okay, so we want to do the training video number two. Training video number two: assessment and betrayal. So, assessment process for Gottman is in three pieces, right? First piece is the time when the couples come in, and you need to do the sheet of assessment, which goes through the story of us, major beliefs around relationship, kind of understand where they're both coming from culturally, their parents, what they saw growing up, and then kind of like get an idea of their friendship with each other, how close are they, how well are they able to engage in conflict, what are the patterns of the four horsemen, right? So for the first assessment session of 90 minutes, basically you break it down into three major pieces. The first piece is where you do the general, hey, tell me what's going on in your relationship. What are the obvious major conflicts, differences, challenges that you guys are facing together? And let them kind of tell that story together and give them about 10, 20 minutes to do that, right? The next piece would be where you go through their entire relationship, milestone by milestone. So it's tell me about the first day that you met each other, what attracted you to each other. Tell me about what it was like to start dating regularly, the ups and downs of that. Tell me about what it was like to move in with each other or to get engaged. Describe those memories. Tell me about what it was like to get married. Tell me about having the first child or buying the first house. Tell me about any major griefs, losses, victories, successes that you experienced together, and what was that like. So you want to get a sense of their major milestones, major transitions, what it was like to kind of grow and develop together. You know, get a sense of major losses, major accomplishments. You want to know what adjustments the couple had to make in developing their life together. Usually, people have stopped doing some things, or they've made some significant sacrifices or changes in their lifestyle for their partner. You know, so get a sense of all of that, and throughout the whole thing, you're trying to get an idea of like how much they love each other, how much they remember the good things versus they're overwhelmed by negative emotion, negative stories, right? So all the major milestones. So it's like get a sense of what their understanding of their issues are, get their entire story of their relationship, and then after those two pieces, the third piece is get a sample conflict. So you want to have them for 10 minutes kind of try to resolve something. So you say, okay, think of a conflict that you both have ongoing right now, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes to try to solve it, and I'm just going to be a fly on the wall, right? I'm just going to watch and kind of get an idea of what kind of patterns are playing out. It'll help me to understand the two of you better and how you're kind of going about conflict. All right, so you let them have that conflict, and you're looking for the four horsemen and their antidotes to see how well they're able to do those good things, how many bad things are present, right? How many of those four horsemen are present, and how they're both responding, right? So you see how well they're kind of influencing each other. If there's somebody who's providing more resistance, somebody who's shutting down, or somebody who's criticizing more, someone who's being more contemptuous. So you get a sense of their patterns. And then after that, you wrap up by getting an idea of like their deeper held beliefs about relationship in general. You can get them to tell you about their childhoods, what they experienced with their parents, and then kind of tell you a little bit about what they know about each other's hopes, dreams, fears, anxieties, things that are important to each other. How much do they know about those things? Right. So that's kind of the first session, and we'll give you the entire Gottman PDF that kind of outlines that whole thing. The second session is individual session, right? Before I talk about that, before this session, you want to send them two things, right? What we're going to do is there's a site called understandmyself.com. We're going to use that. It's a big 5 model of personality. It's 100 questions, takes them about an hour, and it goes and gives them a good sense of their personality style, and then compares them to each other and gives them a nice report on their relationship personality differences, and that's going to be key for understanding perpetual problems, things that are not going away within their relationship that they have to learn how to manage. So this will be a piece of information that we get. And then the other thing is the Gottman Relationship Checkup. So Gottman Relationship Checkup is a whole series of questionnaires that will give you an idea of the entire sound relationship house, right? So on the relationship checkup, now understandmyself.com is $10 for them to complete. each, and then the Gottman um, relationship checkup is like $38 for all of it, for both. So the couples are going to pay for that, and we just have that as an expectation in our intake process, right? So after the initial session, you send them on their way, and you say, next time, before we come back together for individuals, just make sure that these two measures of your relationship and your personalities are complete, right? And then when we come back, then we'll do the individual sessions. Individual session is just kind of a deeper dive on their story, how they grew up, their personality, and then you just get an idea of if there are things that they're not comfortable sharing with you in front of their partner, or things they need help addressing with their partner, they'll give it to you then, right? Try not to have it be the entire individual session where they are talking about their partner and explaining all their partner's problems. It's about them as individuals. What are their needs? What are their experiences? What are their major stressors and the major experiences that went into developing them into who they are today, right? So, and each one of those 45 minutes to an hour session, right? So first session, 90 minutes, the entire story of the relationship, some deeper held beliefs, and then an example of conflict. The second one, we split it in half and we do their individual stories. And then the third time we come together, we're going to take the information that we've learned from the first two sessions and from the questionnaires that we've given them, and talk about kind of what the areas of focus for couples counseling will be given the results of those interviews and then the questionnaires. So the questionnaires are going to give you a really nice direction for this conversation. The PDF from Gottman Relationship Checkup gives you basically the entire relationship house, and it tells you if that area of the house is a challenge or not, and describes what the area of the house is. So when you're reviewing together in that third session, you can just talk about what their major challenges are as a couple, what they think about those, if they agree, and then kind of talk briefly about what the interventions are that you're going to be using in the future to address those areas, and then just get to work, right? So you get to work working on one of those major challenges and starting the path forward, right? So they leave that third session with the PDF of the sound relationship house and the areas that they need to work on, right? You as a clinician are going to have access to a really in-depth, detailed report from Gottman Relationship Checkup that goes into all the results from their questionnaires in the different areas of the relationship house. So before sessions, you can scroll through this and pick out a couple of things that you want to really focus on for the session, have an idea of some of the interventions that you're going to apply, and then come in and be flexible with the couple and where they're at and what's happened and where their primary concerns are, right? So again, like these assessments and tools are for you to use flexibly with the couple, responding to their unique needs in the moment, and allowing yourself to use both like the structure and be flexible in it, right? So don't expect you to have the entire report memorized or be able to quote from it, right? Just use it as a tool and a guide that you can reference to make the work more effective, right? So first and foremost, prioritize the alliance, the connection with the couple's story. Be present authentically and genuinely as a person. If you are enjoying it, right, and the couple is enjoying it, then it's going to work a whole lot better. We don't want you to be overwhelmed by all of the data that is there for you. The data is there to serve you. You're not there to serve the data, right? So the Gottman Relationship Checkup will give you a ton of data. We don't want you to get lost or overwhelmed by it, right? Pick out the stuff that seems to be the most important given the stories of the couple. Trust yourself as a clinician, your clinical judgment, and how you're going to utilize that data. Over time, you will get more capable of identifying what's important and how you're going to use it, and not get overwhelmed by how much material there is to use, right? So again, quick. First session, you come together, 90 minutes, you're going to do tell me what's going on, you're going to do the entire story of the relationship, and you're going to do a sample conflict, and we have that PDF guide so you can follow through. Second session, individuals get their individual stories, anything that is really important that they're not able to share in front of their partner. You want to know if there's any ongoing cheating, if there's any substance use, if there's any abuse, any violence, right, that they're not able to disclose. Obviously treatment is contraindicated if there is like ongoing abuse or if there is an ongoing affair that one person is not willing to end. So we're not gonna treat couples where there's ongoing secrets of that nature, or if there's violence. So we'll gotta redirect them to the appropriate services in that case, right? Um, third time you come together, you're going to be armed with the data from the first two sessions and uh, the questionnaires, and you'll be able to use those as tools to kind of guide your conversation with the couple and direct the course of the work, right? Over time, maybe after about 3 to 6 months, 12 to 24 sessions, you probably want to do the relationship checkup again to see where you're at, and if you've had a good enough impact on the areas of major concern, right? Okay, so that's assessment. So betrayal. So when a couple comes in hot from betrayal, generally assessment is quite difficult. They want to talk about what has happened immediately, and sometimes we have to serve the mission, serve the couple by adjusting our method. So if a couple comes in and they are in a state of crisis, then we are going to provide intervention immediately as needed, right? So if they come in for that first session, they've had a recent D-Day, disclosure day, there's high levels of trauma symptoms, both of them don't know what to do, and they're coming to you and saying, help us, right? Then you say, okay, so generally speaking, this is how we do things. We have this assessment period. What we're going to do is provide emergency intervention for the two of you, and then we'll do the proper assessment following. So the intervention immediately for betrayal is to tell them what their jobs are, what they need to do, and then help them to do those jobs as calmly and as lovingly as possible, right? So the jobs for betrayal: the person who's been betrayed and the person who has betrayed, right? So the betrayer and the betrayed. So the betrayer needs to take full personal responsibility, right? They need to be sorry for what they've done, right? So you need to take full personal responsibility. You need to provide reassurance that you are going to show up and do what's needed, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, and that you love the other person, and that your intention is good. And then you need to provide you need to tell the other person what you're going to do specifically to build trust over time, right? So there's these three pieces that are the job of the person who is the betrayer. It's take full personal responsibility, provide reassurance in a way that lands, right? And then identify what you're going to do specifically to show up over time to build trust, right? So the couple comes in and they're like, what do we do? You say, okay, you both have these jobs, and if you do them really well, then you can heal faster, right? The better you do your jobs, the faster you'll heal, right? And we have to talk lovingly to each other, calmly. Calming down, being calm is like the first thing you teach them. It's like we can't be screaming and yelling at each other and attacking each other, right? We have to shut down the four horsemen, talk to each other with love, and know what our jobs are and do them courageously. You want to reassure the couple too that like reconciliation is not always possible, and that's not necessarily what we're gonna be able to do here together, right? Forgiveness is what always wants to be on the table, but you can forgive the other person without reconciling, without fixing the relationship. Forgiveness is just letting go of the disturbance connected to the memories. It's a healing from trauma. So we're gonna heal from trauma no matter what, whether this relationship is saved or not. We want to heal from trauma. That's what forgiveness means, is healing from the trauma of someone else hurting you, right? So forgiveness is healing from the trauma. That's the idea. That's what we're going to do. That's our goal no matter what. And then reconciliation is a question mark. We don't know if we're going to be able to reconcile. So, sometimes people are very sure that they're going to reconcile, and that's great. Good for them. That's fine. Then you reinforce that. But sometimes they don't know, and most of the times they don't know in the height of the pain, right? So say that's okay. That's all right. You don't know, right? At first, what we're going to do is just work on bandaging up the wound, stopping the flow, right? So understanding the jobs and then doing them well is how you do that. So the betrayer takes full personal responsibility, provides reassurance in a way that lands, and then identifies specific ways that they're going to show up to build trust over time. And then the person who's been betrayed, right? They need to ask the questions and they need to show up without attacking, tearing apart the other person, right? The temptation may be to punish the other person, but if you're punishing them, if you're attacking them, if you're belittling them, if you're raging at them, their healing is not going to happen, right? So we need to be as calm and as gentle as possible, and that's really hard to do, right? We reassure couples that we understand both of these jobs are really hard to do. It is very, very difficult to show up and courageously commit to these jobs in order to heal, right? So you want to be a detective as the person who's been betrayed, but you don't want to be an inquisitor, right? If you're grilling the other person and trying to tear them open so that you can destroy the threat, right? That's not going to work, right? You have to curiously, calmly, and regularly ask the questions that are necessary in order to build evidence of trustworthiness or evidence of untrustworthiness, and so that you can protect yourself and not be hurt ever again, right? Because that's really important. It is really important you don't betray yourself by putting yourself into a bad situation with somebody that you can't trust, right? So you just tell that to the person, right? You tell it to both of them. These are what your jobs are, and this is why, and this is how we're going to orient ourselves, right? Towards the forgiveness process, towards the healing process, towards recovering from this trauma, right? And you call it out as trauma. So it's like, okay, these are our jobs. This is trauma, right? Trauma is a shattering of your reality where you had a certain expectation for the world, for relationships, and that expectation was shattered, and that is shocking, and it feels like a rending of yourself. It is a rending of the identity of the self. And so it is very, very painful and very horrible to experience, right? So you affirm that and you describe what trauma is to both people, and you say, okay, this is healing of trauma. Forgiveness is healing of the trauma, right? And you can have healing of the trauma without necessarily having reconciliation. That's how you get everybody on board on the same objective, and then calming down, grounded, and doing the work positively without being massively triggered and being lost. So basically, couple comes in, you want to be able to describe what their jobs are, help them to self-soothe, to calm down, to describe what forgiveness is, describe what trauma is, and then facilitate them both doing their jobs, right? It's like the person who's been betrayed needs to be able to ask all of the questions that they have and get them answered honestly by the other. Um, and sometimes this can be a real struggle, and sometimes this is very easy, right? So couples who are, and you can tell them, and I would tell them, couples who are able to do these jobs well, right after the betrayal, right, can heal pretty quickly. Again, if you lean into these jobs and you both are able to self-soothe, to calm, and to commit yourselves to the jobs, then you can have faster healing, right? So, all right. So you describe all those concepts, and then you start to facilitate the path towards forgiveness. And the path towards forgiveness starts with those jobs, and basically you have to do three components to this process while doing these jobs. The first major piece is telling the story of what, right? It's what happened. What the hell happened? Right? And that's telling the trauma narrative, telling the story, and sticking to the facts, right? So what happened? And that's asking all of the questions and getting it all sorted, right? Generally speaking, it's very good to have the couple create a timeline of all of the events that occurred in betrayal, right? So these are all the major things that happened. Here is the timeline, and get all of the questions answered, and then understand what it is that you'll need the other person to do to show up to build trust around those things that happened, right? So get the narrative out and get it out and get the timeline out and get all the details out as honestly and courageously and calmly as possible, right? That's the start. That's what you do first. And this can take a long time, depending on what kind of betrayal it is and how often it happened and what is the nature of it, right? This could take 20 sessions if it's like betrayal that happens over time, and it's like you have whole mountains of betrayal on both sides, and it's very, very tricky work, right? So get the story of what the hell happened out there, right? And do it without the four horsemen present. Do it as calmly as possible. You might have to do like teaching of self-calming in terms of like progressive muscle relaxation, breath work, positive self-talk, practicing the antidotes to the four horsemen, resolving present conflicts so that you can have clear head and be able to do the work necessary, right? So betrayal trauma is in relationship therapy is quite tough because a lot of times you have to weave in and out of the regular couples therapy work while you are addressing and healing the trauma narrative, right? So it's all of the couples counseling stuff alongside the trauma work, right? So that's what you're doing. You're helping the couple to collaboratively together heal and do trauma work. So you're going to tell the trauma narrative, like what the hell happened, and then you have to do over time you do why it happened, and that's usually kind of like slowly starts to happen during the story of what. And sometimes it's not ever possible to get like a satisfying why did that happen, but you help the couple to get as close as you can by understanding all of the psychological, environmental, social pressures, forces, differences in personality, opportunity, um, you know, all the factors that you can that go into understanding why the betrayal happened. So understanding what happened, and then over time understanding why it happened is majorly healing for the person who's been betrayed, right? The third piece, really important, is achieving the growth necessary so that it never happens again, right? So in betrayal healing, it's tell the story of what happened, timeline, understand, have all the questions answered satisfyingly, both of you leaning into your jobs, right? The person who's been betrayed is not driving as an inquisitor and punishing, is trying to be as calm as possible and open the door for the reassurance to land, right? At a certain point, forgiveness is a choice where it's I choose to put myself in a risky situation where I know I can't trust you, but I'm opening myself to do this work courageously. And then over time, that trust can build if you open the door for it to land, right? So it's both of us need to be on the same team of healing. We both want to achieve healing. We both want to build trust, right? And we both are on the pathway to forgiveness together. And we show that to each other by refraining from the four horsemen, by doing their antidotes, and by calmly embracing our jobs, telling the story of what, being completely honest with each other, and then showing up to meet each other's needs regularly and reasonably, right? So we do have to help the betrayed person be reasonable and not to tear their partner to pieces or to exact revenge on them, right? And then we need to show the person who is the betrayer, to take full personal responsibility, own it completely, right? That's key. Own it completely, to diffuse defensiveness, to not try to over-explain themselves if that's not landing as the story of why, right? And to trust the other person that they need their questions answered, and to actually show up and do the stuff that's going to build trust, right? A lot of times that's having your phone being checked regularly or randomly. That's like putting a tracking thing on so the person knows where you are. It's answering their phone calls within a reasonable amount of time or right away. It's not doing the things that are obviously going to trigger them, right? So it's like not watching scandalous TV shows after having a sexual affair, or it's like not watching pornography, or not drinking alcohol, or refraining from telling inappropriate jokes, or whatever. I'm not going to trigger you I'm going to avoid the things that are obviously triggering and trust you that they're triggering. So okay. So we need to help them both embrace their jobs and engage in the process of forgiveness, the story of what, the story of why, and then necessary growth so that it never happens again. So this is key, and this means generally that we have developed the skills in couples counseling to show up for each other with love, to meet each other's deeper held needs, to navigate conflict effectively, and to establish ritualistically, regularly, emotional connection and safety so we can be deeply vulnerable with each other so that deception never happens again, right? So that tends to be, that's the pathway forward. Okay, so it's a lot, but it's like you could take your time and do one piece at a time. Never let the four horsemen um, just take the session away, right? It's shutting down the four horsemen, teaching their antidotes, helping the couple to resolve here and now problems, help them to identify like where they can serve each other effectively, helping them to plan for very specific boundary times where they can have the betrayal conversations, and do that regularly and courageously, right? In the beginning, the couple will probably have to have a lot more time when they're talking about the story of what outside of therapy, right? It's like if they can, they should. If they're too triggered by it and it's not helpful, then you advise them to keep it to the therapy sessions until they can safely have those conversations together, and not hurt each other, right? So you assess with them if that's appropriate or not, and then how to stay safe and have those conversations in a way that's going to be productive and helpful, meaning they both need to be doing their jobs and not doing the four horsemen, right? So have those conversations if you can keep the four horsemen out of it and you can collaboratively do your jobs. If you can't, then we keep it in therapy until you can, and then you set up that boundaried, regular, disciplined telling of the story of what leaning into your jobs and showing up to heal each other, right? So in this process, the person who has betrayed is the healer, has the greatest potential to heal the other. And they do that by telling the truth. And you want to hammer this in right away so they understand is, listen, you may be tempted to lie to your partner because you don't want to hurt them. It is essential that you do not lie. It is essential that you tell the truth, and actually telling them the truth, even if it's really painful and does hurt them initially, will be really healing. The person who's been betrayed wants to hear the details, wants to know what you've done that's wrong, and actually hearing you say things that you've done wrong that they don't know about will be really reassuring and will be healing, right? So it's important to tell them that and say, hey, you might be tempted to be hiding stuff because you think that sharing it will do more damage than good. But that's not the case. You need to tell them everything. You need to tell them the truth. And that's going to be really hard in the beginning. But as you go, then that's going to have a really powerful impact on the healing journey, right? So the healing journey is all about honesty, about creating windows into your internal world, not walls. So we need there to be real deep vulnerability. You have to tell the truth. And if you do not tell the truth and you continue to deceive, then this will not work. You will not heal, and it will fall apart, right? It's going to be a vicious cycle of unnecessary suffering on both sides. So you have to tell the truth, right? So hammer that in. You got to tell the truth. You got to be deeply vulnerable. Telling the truth, yes, may do some damage at first, will hurt, will reduce trust, but then that will provide satisfaction and healing of understanding of what happened, why it happened, and then the necessary growth, right, to move forward well and stably, right? Okay. So, boundaried work. So, teaching the couple to face this work and carry it alongside living their lives is important. So, just like any other work we do in therapy, it's, hey, you need to be able to live your life while you're doing this work. So, making sure that this work is not getting in the way of your other relationships, your hobbies, your work, your children, right? You're going to show up in your life while you do this work. And you're going to make sure that you protect that for yourself and for each other. We're going to set times to talk about this, right? Maybe we do an hour every evening, but we put limits on it so that it doesn't just take over our lives and keep us from doing the things that we're responsible for, right? So having it be functional is key, right? We teach functionality and we support functionality. You live your life alongside the terrible, horrible thing. And then over time, the terrible, horrible thing becomes integrated. You accept it. There's acceptance of the process. And the process can take a long time, depending. So we need to make sure it's sustainable. So we help the couple to create a plan where they have regular, disciplined work on the trauma story, and they sustain themselves and each other, right? And you explain that, listen, the journey is hard and it's long, and if you're fully committed to it, that means that you're going to sustain yourself and each other too, so that you can carry it without collapsing. We need to be reasonable with ourselves and compassionate. So what is it that we both need to make sure we don't collapse and that we can continue to carry this work? Last thing that I'll end with is there are three things that happen when there's a reduction of trust, again, after a betrayal, right? So it's a lapse, a relapse, and a collapse, right? So lapses and relapses are very, very normal. A lapse is a momentary reduction of trust that is quickly recovered, right? There's a trigger, there's an action, there's something that hurts the person who's been betrayed, and then trust is kind of takes a little bit of a dip. And the other person shows up. If you both do your jobs well, then you can recover from that rather quickly. A relapse is a big drop, right? So it's like the person watches pornography, or they're drinking again, or they're texting somebody inappropriately. There's something that happens that's a big hit to trust. Um, a relapse can even happen from something small, right? But so there's just a big reduction in trust and a lot of pain and reliving of the trauma symptoms, the trauma memories. It all comes back hard, and this happens. This is very normal. So you might get this 2 or 3 times in your process with a couple. So when it does happen, right, you help the couple to understand that relapses are normal. They happen. They're going to happen, and we need to show up, do our jobs well, practice the skills, and we can recover and we can build back up, right? It sucks, it's hard, it's difficult, and it's a normal part of the process, lapse and relapse. Collapse is if the whole thing falls apart, right? So that's if you cheat again, or you hit me, or you're refusing to stop having a relationship with the other person, or you're whatever it is. So that's when the red line is crossed. So it's if the red line is crossed and the trust is not recoverable, then it's over, right? That's a collapse. Then you help the couple to separate. So you want to explain that as well, and call it out when it's happening, help them understand that it's happening, and help them navigate it in a way that is sustainable and reasonable, giving each other enough space and not doing the four horsemen, showing up to understand and rectify with action that builds trust, right? Okay, that's probably enough for assessment and betrayal stories. So we could talk more about all of these. Please bring some questions for one-on-one time, and think about the individuals and couples that you are working with, and how to start applying these ideas. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.